What is up, guys? Happy Wednesday. Hope you're all doing well. We're going to hang out for the next half an hour or so and go over everything you guys need so far. We're going to go over practice reports, some player updates for you guys, and I'll answer any questions you guys have in the chat room. I'm first just going to read the player practice news from today, and then we'll get into your questions. So thanks for hanging out with me tonight. Happy Wednesday. Again, hope everyone's doing well. DK Metcalf officially full practice on Wednesday. So we're expecting DK Metcalf back in full this weekend. That's good news here. He had missed the last two games, and then he had the bye week. So it feels like it's been a while since we've seen DK Metcalf, but he is good to go. Make sure he's in your lineups. I know it's San Francisco, but we want DK in our lineups. Hayden Hurst doesn't practice on Wednesday for the Chargers with a personal day. Not sure what that's about. Josh Reynolds was activated. His practice window was activated by the Broncos. Not sure he's going to matter for fantasy. Isaiah Likely, Baltimore Ravens tight end, is limited today with a hamstring injury. He's on track to play again this weekend. Jamal Williams still not practicing. I don't know if it matters. The Saints are just going to feed Alvin Kamara a ton of touches. T. Higgins, that's probably the most important one of the day. T. Higgins was officially limited in practice today. He participated in a walkthrough. He didn't take any practice reps, but the fact that he was out there moving around and running around, I think is a good thing. So he's on track to play this weekend. If he does play, I want him in my fantasy lineups, even though it's a tough matchup against the Chargers. No Tank Bigsby today. He does not practice on Wednesday. We also saw Trevor Lawrence was already ruled out as well. If I have Tank Bigsby, I'm not starting Tank Bigsby. Sorry. Like he's a running back that needs a game script for them to be in the lead, winning the game. They're in Detroit. There's just no chance to, maybe he scores like a garbage time touchdown or something crazy happens, but not relying on Tank Bigsby. George Kittle doesn't practice today, which is a little bit of a concern. He's expected to return to practice later this week, so maybe he's on track to play, but we'll watch for that tomorrow. Steelers, Najee Harris does not practice today. They don't seem too concerned about it, but I think it's pretty guaranteed that he's not going to be 100% coming into this weekend's game against Baltimore. Baltimore, very, very good against opponent running backs. I think they might lean on Jaylen Warren a little bit more right now. So if I'm ranking these guys, and I'm going to have an update tomorrow on my rankings, I think I'm going to rank Jaylen Warren ahead of Najee Harris this weekend. Brian Robinson Jr. not on the injury report for tomorrow night, so I think he's good to go. He's playing tomorrow night. He's a low-end RB2. The Eagles' defense still pretty good right now. Michael Pittman Jr. listed as full practice participant, and then we get the news that Anthony Richardson's starting. So there goes our Josh Downs stock. There goes our Michael Pittman Jr., Adonai Mitchell. All the Colts receivers get a pretty massive downgrade here, but Michael Pittman Jr., good to go. Looks like he's on track to play. JJ McCarthy underwent a second surgery to address swelling. No changes to the recovery or the timetable. He's still 9 months out, which puts him on track to be ready for August training camp. It is a little bit worrisome seeing the second surgery for the swelling. So we'll probably hear more about that in the offseason, April, May, that kind of time. No Sam Laporta today, not practicing with a shoulder injury. I think he's on track to be doubtful. So if you have Sam Laporta, you can look into some other tight ends, whether it's Dawson Knox, who we'll talk about later, I'm sure, or Brock Wright, maybe Jonnu Smith, Hunter Henry, those kind of tight ends. But it's trending towards Sam Laporta not playing this weekend. The Raiders have said that Gardner Minshew is the starting guy for the QB spot this weekend. Marshawn Lloyd for the Packers, designated to return. His practice window has been opened. I don't expect him to play this weekend. I want to see him practice, get another week of practice next week. In week 12, I think we could see Marshawn Lloyd back in action. No Marshawn Lloyd or Lattimore tomorrow night for the Commanders. So nice little hit there for the Eagles receivers and Jalen Hurts. Isaiah Pacheco unlikely to play, but we kind of assume that. I think he's got a chance to play week 12. I think week 13 is more realistic. Juju Smith-Schuster has a chance to play this weekend with that hamstring injury. We're not starting Juju, though. And then Amari Cooper limited in practice today. That's a good chance for him to be available this weekend against the Chiefs. And then Dalton Kincaid not practicing on Wednesday with the knee injury. I think he's on track to be doubtful. So if you need a tight end, Dawson Knox could be of interest to you. And then the last one here for you guys, Devontae Adams' illness and wrist won't practice today. So we'll see what happens tomorrow with Devontae Adams. But good evening to everybody. Hope you're doing well. Don't forget to like the video, subscribe if you guys are new, and I'm going to start rifling through your questions. So good evening to Harris. Good evening to Chase. Start three, full PPR. We got London, Debo, Smith, Thomas Jr., Cooper Kupp, Nico, or Kenneth Walker. That is a really good place to be. If these are your guys that you're deciding options between, I think London's probably the name. Like you probably just have to play London. I think you probably just have to play Nico Collins. Those are the two guys that stick out to me the most. I'm not playing Thomas Jr. He's probably the last one on this list. I do like Devonta Smith quite a bit against the Commanders. I still like Debo, but he's kind of, I don't know, he's kind of just a weird guy right now where I don't really trust him for fantasy. So, and then you have Kenneth Walker, who's just been a stud in the passing game. So I think you probably have to play Kenneth Walker, London, and then I want to get Nico in there, but then we're benching Kupp. Okay, if you want to go Nico, Kupp, in London, I'm fine with that, but I might get Kenneth Walker in there. Good evening to Daniel. Pittman or Thomas Jr. full PPR this weekend. I don't really trust Michael Pittman Jr. with Anthony Richardson, so I'm going Thomas Jr. Herbert or Daniels. A lot of people I'm getting a lot of Herbert questions so far this weekend. I don't really trust Herbert. It is a good matchup for him on Sunday Night Football, but I'm going with Jane Daniels here. Sam Darnold or Tua. We're starting to see some cracks in the Sam Darnold games, which doesn't really excite me. I do feel safer with Tua Tagovailoa. They're at home against the Raiders. I'm going to go Tua. The Titans defense has been stingy, and I think we're going to get a good game from Tua this weekend. Ferguson or Tucker Kraft. So I'm going to lean Tucker Kraft. I just think he's got a better chance for a touchdown than Jake Ferguson. Ferguson probably ends up with a little bit more targets, but Kraft off a bye week, Jordan Love off a bye week, hopefully feeling a lot better. I'm excited about that Packers offense. So I'm going to lean Tucker Kraft by a hair. Oh, JSC, this is a great question. So will Kareem Hunt still have standalone value with Pacheco back? I think what's going to happen is the Chiefs are thinking they're going to, go for a Super Bowl here. So I don't expect – okay, so say Pacheco's back next weekend, week 12. I don't think there's any scenario where he's getting more than 10, 12 touches in that game. It's probably more in the 6 to 10 range where they're just going to kind of ease him back in, I would expect. And Kareem Hunt's been very, very good for them. So what happens is I would imagine instead of Kareem Hunt, Samaje Perine, and Carson Steele, I could just totally see Carson Steele going away. I could see Samaje Perine almost going away. And you're looking at a duo of Kareem Hunt and Isaiah Pacheco. That could be very well. So I would imagine Kareem Hunt still a goal line, short yardage kind of back. He's going to be their grinder that probably leads them in carries. And Pacheco is more of their explosive guy where they want to make sure that he's getting his 7 to 10 touches per game. I do think Hunt will still have standalone value, but that could all change on a dime. So in that first game back, I'm still starting Kareem Hunt, and then we'll evaluate it from there. But I think you have at least 2 more games where Kareem Hunt's still a must-start running back too, and then we'll evaluate again. Sit 1, Cook, D-Hop, and McConkey. I think it's easiest to sit Ladd McConkey. There's just not enough passing volume in LA. And I know he's been good, but D-Hop and James Cook, I want action in that Chiefs-Bills game. So I'm going to sit McConkey there, Daniel. Pollard or Terry non-PPR. Okay, so that one's tough because in a non-PPR, I usually go with the running back, but I don't really love Tony Pollard and the chances for touchdowns right now in Tennessee. Whereas Commanders tomorrow night, that could be a really high-scoring game where there's probably 2 passing touchdowns on both sides. So I'm leaning Terry McLaurin here over Tony Pollard. I'm going to go with Devon Achane. He's the younger back. He's also the more explosive back. He's a PPR freak right now, just catching 4, 5, 6 passes per game. I do like Joe Mixon quite a bit. He's a big volume piece, but he's also an older running back. The Texans don't really excite me, and the Dolphins don't either, but I think right now Achane's the more exciting talent at running back. And with Nico Collins coming back too, that could potentially steal some of the touchdowns and the yards coming out of Mixon. So I'm going to lean Achane here over Joe Mixon. And hey, good evening to Jason. Rank Aaron, Pickens, Drake. I'm assuming that is Aaron Jones, George Pickens, and Drake. For this weekend, I really like George Pickens against Baltimore this weekend. I think he's probably your best player of this group. Uh, I would rank Drake London number 2 and then Aaron Jones third. I'm a little bit nervous with Aaron Jones. He left the game briefly last weekend. They like Cam Akers. It's a game where we don't really need to expect the Vikings to do much against Tennessee, so they might take it easy with Aaron Jones. I think Pickens, Drake, and Aaron Jones is how I would rank them. Who to stash, Guerendo or Estime, half PPR? In a half PPR, it's definitely Estime. He's very likely going to be the guy that leads the team and carries the rest of the way. And there's probably not a lot of rushing touchdown upside in Denver's offense, but if I can start a guy that's going to get 10 to 15 carries, I'm going to do that. Whereas Guerendo right now, Christian McCaffrey looked good. You're banking on a Christian McCaffrey re-injury to the Achilles, and then Guerendo could step in. So I think for now, Estime is the guy with the better upside right now. Yes. I know it's Jacksonville. I understand it's Jacksonville, but the Lions could easily just, they could be up 14-0 at the end of the first quarter, and they could just be running the ball the rest of the game. There's a serious risk to, again, they had a game where there was like only 18 Goff pass attempts. I think you collect the points with Cook and Tyreek. It's a great matchup for Tyreek against the Raiders, and I really like James Cook to be involved a lot for Kansas City. So I would rank JMO the clear number 3 option. To me, Jameson Williams is more of like a top 40 wide receiver. I still don't really trust him. He's got the big playability, but I still don't really quite trust him as my wide receiver 3 in fantasy football right now. The easy answer is Hopkins. I do like Amari Cooper back this weekend, but you got to go with Hopkins. Should I trade Adams for Pickens? I'm open to it, man. I really think we got to take a second to just applaud the Steelers for going to Russell Wilson. Justin Fields had that team at 3-1, 3-2. Things were looking really good. Justin Fields was a top 10 quarterback in fantasy football. That seems so long ago, but that's what was happening. And then they made the decision to go to Russell Wilson, and all of a sudden the offense looks pretty good. It's pretty balanced. They're putting up a lot of touchdowns and points, and they're moving the ball. So I'm all in on George Pickens. I think rest of season rankings, I might have, let me double check this. I might have Davante Adams slightly higher, but I mean, just not very impressed with what the Jets have been putting out. I have George Pickens as wide receiver 14 rest of season, Davante Adams wide receiver 18. So I'm going with GP. Great question here. Thoughts on Benson? I boosted Benson pretty high because he's starting to look like a guy that if anything happens to James Conner, and we'll knock on wood here, it looks like Trey Benson can hang. He looks like a guy that could be their lead back. I still think that if Conner were to get hurt, they're going to rely on Amari DiMercato in third down, 2-minute drill and passing situations still. But Benson looks like a guy that could, be 12 to 16 carries per game, something in that range. I moved him up in my rest of season rankings. He's now like in the RB40 range. So he is one of the elite handcuffs. And there's a handful of elite handcuffs right now, whether it's Trey Benson, maybe Ray Davis, Jalen Wright, Blake Corum, Tyler Algier. Those are some elite handcuffs right now, and Benson's among the top of them. Dawson Knox or Jonnu Smith. So that one's tough. I want to rely on Dawson Knox. I think he could be a guy that scores some touchdowns for us. Jonnu Smith has been a guy that's been a high floor. So Jonnu Smith seems to be the safer play. But I mean, I could totally see if Kincaid's out, I could totally see Dawson Knox having a 4 for 60 game and a touchdown or something like that. The Chiefs, though, allowing tight end points, they allow the most. They allow 16.42 PPR points per game to the tight end position. They've allowed the most receiving yards to tight ends. They've only allowed 3 touchdowns, but teams are hitting tight ends on them. I think Dawson Knox is the play. If you're looking at Jonnu Smith, he's still a good play. The Raiders do rank as the 28th worst team here in terms of tight end points. So I think they're both great plays. I'm going to lean Dawson Knox just a little bit. Gabe, good evening. Who is the better rest of season? Drake May or Bo Nix? I think it's got to be Bo Nix. He's shown it to us longer. And I also think that the environment of the Broncos team in general is a lot healthier than the Patriots. Like, the Broncos are projected to win games right now. Drake May is still dealing with a lot of injuries right now. whether it's the offensive line, the receivers are pretty young and inexperienced. Whereas Bo Nix right now, he's running the ball really well. Cortland Sutton's playing well. You have a few other guys making plays in the receiving game. I think Bo Nix is the safer call. Although I do like what Drake May has been doing. He's been actually pretty sneaky in terms of super flex, but he had 2 games, 19 and 20 his first 2 games, and then 11, 15, and 11. So he's playing better. He's got a nice floor. I think you got to go Bo Nix, though. He seems to be the higher floor, higher ceiling play. Pick one in full PPR. Mike G. Who is Mike G? Mike Gesicki, Gibson, Tipton, Gabe Davis, Conklin, and Westbrook. So it looks like T. Higgins is going to be back this weekend. If T. Higgins doesn't play, I want to play Mike Gesicki. Otherwise, I'm probably going to go with Gabe Davis. I think he gives you your highest potential for 20 fantasy points. I don't trust Tipton. Don't trust Gibson. Don't trust Conklin. Nick Westbrook-Ikhine could be your number 2 option, but it's a good defense that he's playing. It's probably Gabe Davis here. Not even close. It's Bo Nix. Not even thinking about Caleb Williams these days. Tua over Darnold. I'm in on Tua over Darnold. I'm pretty concerned about Darnold. The Jags defense is one of the worst in the league, and they really limited the offense there for Minnesota. So very concerned. Sam Darnold also kind of dinged up in this one. He's limited with a right hand injury. He really hit his hand, and they were looking at it on the sideline here. So I'm kind of whatever on the Vikings offense this weekend. I think Tua is where you want to be against the Raiders, and they have some momentum right now. Would you trade Jay Cook plus receiver for Walker? I think going all in for the playoffs. That's tough. I don't know how big of an upgrade Walker is over Cook. I think Kenneth Walker has been one of the better running backs in the league. He's averaging almost 20 fantasy points per game. But James Cook's also been pretty good. He's averaging about 16.5 to 17 points per game. If one of them will be on my bench. So I would keep DeAndre Hopkins and keep Marvin Harrison Jr. If I can do James Cook and McConkey for Kenneth Walker, I will do it. We are not playing Xavier Worthy at this point right now. I think Ricky Pearsall is probably the move. Daniels or Purdy. Oh my goodness, that one's tough. Purdy's been so good lately, guys. I'm going Purdy. I think Purdy's a top 5 play right now with CMC healthy. If it's full PPR, I will go Elijah Moore. If it's standard league, I will go Mike Williams. Pick one PPR, ETN, Bigsby, Madison, Chubb all day. Chubb against the Saints. Give me Nick Chubb. If I'm ranking these guys, I'm going to go Chubb, ETN, Madison, Bigsby. Thoughts on Daniel's rest of season? Any game we should be worried? Should I go after a backup to play matchups between them? It depends on who the backups are. I'm not too concerned on Jaden Daniels. I mean, he did have a bad game last weekend against Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh sees Lamar Jackson twice a year. That was the one game that I kind of figured he wouldn't have his way. So he's had 2 bad games in fantasy all year. He got hurt against Carolina. That game doesn't count. And a 9-point game against the Steelers. I'm overall not concerned. I do think Philly's a challenge, but you can pass on Philly. Dallas, Tennessee, New Orleans, Philly, Atlanta. I'm not really concerned about him rest of season. I think he's going to be just fine. He actually hasn't rushed for a rushing touchdown since week 4, so I'm hoping for some rushing volume to come back his way. Have Herbert and Purdy available. I'm going Purdy. Yeah. I'm going Purdy, my man. Rest of season rankings is updated. I updated them this morning, Wednesday morning. I might have to redo them because I don't know if I updated them with Joe Flacco. Let me double check. Yeah, I did. I moved Anthony Richardson up, Joe Flacco down. So rest of season rankings are updated right now. I have Jaden Daniels as QB4, Brock Purdy QB8. You guys can check it out on thefantasyfellowship.com. Mike G or Pat Freiermuth. I'm going to go with T. Higgins is back, but I think Mike Gesicki is still going to run a lot of routes. I'm going to lean Mike Gesicki here, but I don't feel great about either one. Would you rather have Bigsby over Justice Hill or Roschon Johnson? Sure. Yeah, I'll keep Bigsby. Amari Cooper or Eckler, half PPR. Just because we don't know if Cooper is going to play, I think you probably have to play Eckler tomorrow night. And maybe Brian Robinson's not quite 100% quite yet. I'm going to lean Austin Eckler here. Bigsby. So this is the questions we're getting. Bigsby or Justice Hill, Roschon Johnson. Bigsby is droppable. If you guys need to make a move, like I would rather own, and I have this in my rankings here. Let me double check. I still got Bigsby at like RB35, but if you wanted to get, Audric Estime, Tajay Spears, Algier, Trey Benson, Ray Davis, Jalen Wright, Blake Corum, Braylon Allen, those type of handcuff running backs, I think it's fine because at this point, are you really going to feel good starting Tank Bigsby? Even if ETN plays, they're still messing around with Dearness Johnson as the passing down back. We're going to see Mac Jones start this weekend, then they're on bye next weekend. I think the next 2-week outlook, you're not using Tank Bigsby. I would rather put my chips on one of the handcuff running backs we just talked about. It's just not working, man. The Jets offense is not working. I'm willing to move on. I do like CJ Stroud this week better than what it's been in the last month or so. I'm still concerned that Nico Collins isn't going to be enough to make him like a top 5 QB. I think he's more in that QB 10 to 12 range. I have CJ Stroud ranked as my QB 12 for the rest of season. He's going to be a fringe QB 1. So, I'm fine with CJ Stroud. It's against Dallas. Still don't think he's in a smash spot unless Nico Collins erupts, but you're going CJ Stroud over Mac Jones for sure. Thoughts on Dissly? That's a good question. I do like Will Dissly this weekend. The Cincinnati Bengals are allowing over 15 points per game to the tight end position, so it's a good spot. Hayden Hurst was missing time today with a personal thing, so I'm not sure what's going on with that. But over the last, 5 or so games, we have seen Will Dissly's numbers look almost startable, I shall say. So if I just pull up Will Dissly's numbers real quick here, and ESPN's projecting him for about 8 points, but he's seen 6 targets, 3 targets, 7, 11, and 5 in the last 5 games. No touchdowns yet. Maybe he scores against Cincinnati on Sunday night. I'm okay with Aaron Rodgers this weekend. It's the Colts, which isn't really a scary defense. You can throw on the Colts. It's in New York. Jets got their back against the wall. They need to win this one. I think Rodgers probably scores 2 touchdowns. And hey, Steven, thank you, my man. Thank you so much. I appreciate you. Thank you for the super chat. Let's get to your question here. Would you drop Deontay Johnson to pick up a better defense this week? I'm stuck with the Chargers. Eagles, Falcons, Broncos, and Titans are all available. So if we just remove Deontay Johnson's name from him and look at what he is essentially Baltimore's wide receiver 3 or 4 right now. And in terms of targets, you have Zay Flowers, Mark Andrews, Rashad Bateman, 3 guys ahead of him on the depth chart for targets. And I don't quite think there's enough meat on the bone for Lamar to get Deontay Johnson there. So in leagues where I have Deontay Johnson, especially, redraft leagues, I think dynasty leagues you hold. But for me, I'm moving on from Deontay Johnson. There's only 4 or 5 games left in the regular season right now. I'm looking to upgrade from Deontay Johnson. And if you can get a defense that you're going to use for this week, I still like the Chargers just because I think that game's going to be low scoring. If I could pick up the Lions defense, that's probably my number 1 pickup this week. If I can find a team, otherwise I do like the Packers. You're asking about the Eagles. I don't really want to mess with the Eagles in the Commanders game tomorrow night. I think that could be a high scoring game. The Falcons, on the other hand, we really don't trust their defense at all. They haven't been good. They've been allowing every single game this year, they've allowed more than 20 points except week 1. So I'm out on the Falcons. I think the Broncos are interesting, but I don't really want to mess with the Falcons offense because we've seen them be able to blow up. But the Broncos tend to hold teams down to points here. So I think the Broncos are probably the number 1 option from this list. If I'm starting a defense from that list, I'm going to start the Broncos. I would double check to see if the Lions are available. I'm assuming the Dolphins are gone. I would maybe look into the Packers as well. So Lions, Dolphins, Packers, I would start over the Broncos. But if you want to pick up Denver, and honestly, Denver for the rest of season, I think you're going to use them more than you would Deontay Johnson. Denver gets the Raiders in week 12. They get the Jameis Winston Cleveland Browns week 13. They're on bye week 14, but then they get week 15. They're going to get the Colts. Week 16, they're going to get the Chargers. I think you can start the Broncos 4 or 5 times the rest of the year. So I hope that helps, Steven. And hey, thank you so much for the super chat, my man. Really appreciate it. And I just appreciate everybody in the chat room hanging out with me on a lovely Wednesday evening. So you're the man, Steven. Thank you so much. Hope that helps. William, Jaylen Warren, or Rico Dowdle, 0.5 PPR. So Rico on Monday night is nice because we get to see what's going on here. So if Najee Harris is out, you have to play Jaylen Warren. I don't think it's close. Right now, I'm projecting Najee Harris to play, but maybe be a little bit limited. Maybe it's more of like a 50-50 split type situation. So as much as I like Jaylen Warren, if Najee plays, I think you got to wait for Rico Dowdle. And I know it looked pretty bad last weekend for the Cowboys. I think it looks better this weekend. And it's pretty clear the Cowboys know that Rico is their RB1. He's going to get his 8 to 12 touches running the ball. He's going to get his 2 to 3 catches. I think Rico over Jaylen Warren if Najee Harris plays. Thoughts on Purdy rest of season, especially playoff matchups. Let's look at Purdy's schedule. Just Christian McCaffrey catching passes again is such a wonderful thing for that offense. It's really going to open things up. But Brock Purdy, man, he gets Seattle, at Green Bay, at Buffalo. Those 2 games seem like high throwing potential shoot. The next 3 games, Seattle, Green Bay, and Buffalo seem like shootouts. Chicago, a little bit better passing defense. That worries me a little bit. I think the Rams, Purdy lit them up for 25 fantasy points early in the year. And then Miami, Detroit. This looks like one of the best fantasy schedules, I think, rest of way for a quarterback. So, again, rest of season, I did put Purdy at QB8. You could probably convince me to move him up a spot or 2, but it's tough. Maybe he's at 6 or 7, but I really like Brock Purdy in that 49ers offense now. Dissly over Kraft this weekend? No, I'm not quite there yet. I'm still going to play Tucker Kraft. I think there's more potential with the Packers offense. And as much as I like the Chargers right now, there's just, again, not enough passing volume for me to trust. I can see the Packers throwing the ball 30 to 35 times, whereas the Chargers are more 20 to 25. So it's a numbers game for me. I'm going to go with Kraft. Aaron Rodgers or CJ Stroud? Let me just double check my rankings here. I think I'm going to lean CJ Stroud here. It's a fun game. It's almost a home game for Houston, just playing at Dallas. And I'm going to lean CJ Stroud here. I have CJ Stroud as QB 14 for the week. Aaron Rodgers a little bit farther back at QB 20. So CJ Stroud for me. Would you do Rico and Reed for Pickens and Calvin Ridley? If Rico is like your RB4 and you're not using him, I'm fine with this. And you need the wide receiver help, I'm fine with it. If Rico's your RB3, I might just hold on to him. I do think I'm probably going to be ranking Jaden Reed as the number 1 receiver from this group right now, but it's close. I think if you don't need Rico, you can go ahead and do it. Yes. Yeah, go get Sam Laporta. And I know he might not play this weekend, so you might have to have another tight end option, but rest of season, give me Sam Laporta over those 2 guys. Pearsall or Addison rest of season? So this one's a good question because I think Addison, he hasn't really been playing all that well this season. Like, he's not really a dependable guy in our fantasy lineups every week. I still like Jordan Addison in like a dynasty context, but I think for redraft, he's not really a guy that I'm excited to get in my lineups. He's had 2 games over double digits in those games he caught touchdowns in, but now you have TJ Hawkinson coming in and commanding almost 8, 9, 10 targets per game. Addison falls to the number 3 receiving option, and I just don't think you're ever going to feel comfortable starting him because you basically need the touchdown for him to hit. I don't see him being a volume player anymore. Now with Ricky Pearsall, there's kind of some appeal to like the great unknown. Like, this is the guy that has played 3 professional games. He's had 5 points, 11.7, and 17.3 points in 3 games, 5, 4, and 6 targets. Obviously, the big play touchdown. His floor is 5 to 12 points right now. He's in the more electric passing offense. I'm going with Ricky Pearsall rest of season, and I might have to actually update my rest of season rankings on that because there's a lot of moving parts today. So I might update my rest of season rankings tomorrow. Let me just double check where I have Pearsall coming in here. I have Pearsall at 42 and Addison at 43. So Ricky P. Yep, Ricky Pearsall. Would you do Amari Cooper and Nico Collins for JJ and Smith? Yep. Yeah, give me JJ. I as much as I like, I mean, Nico was amazing the first month. But give me JJ over Nico, and then Devonta Smith over Cooper seems like a no-brainer. Would you do Warren, Nico, and Jennings for Brian Robinson and A.J. Brown? I want the Warren, Nico, Jennings side of that deal. I think Nico and A.J. Brown even out, and Warren and Jennings, I think, outweigh Robinson for me. Caleb, Puka, and Rashad White for Russell, Calvin Ridley, Brian Robinson, Malik Neighbors, Superflex, full PPR. In Superflex, give me the Russell Wilson, Calvin Ridley, B-Rob, and Malik Neighbors side. I know you're giving up the best receiver asset here, but Caleb Williams is not even startable in Superflex leagues. So I think you have a huge potential for 4 starters with that trade. I'm going with the Russell Wilson side. Ooh, good question. Top 3 defenses for week number 12. Let me just kind of run down the schedule here. All right, so Thursday Night Football, Steelers, Cleveland Browns. I think the Steelers are probably a pretty good play that weekend. Minnesota at Chicago, so Minnesota's going to be in play. I think Miami Dolphins get the Patriots at home, so that's a good one. Tampa Bay, New York Giants, not really interested. Washington versus Dallas. Kansas City at Carolina. Kansas City is going to be the defense that we want. Tennessee, Houston, maybe Houston's defense. Denver at Las Vegas. So Denver sticking out as one of the best defenses for that week. Kansas City, Miami, Minnesota, and Pittsburgh. Those would be my top options. So for teams that are widely available, I guess it's probably Miami as a streamer. You have Bo, if that makes anything different. Not really. I'm still fine with holding on. So I guess if you're starting Bo Nix as your QB2, I think you're fine with that. But you're getting a lot more flex players here with Calvin Ridley, Brian Robinson, Malik Neighbors. You're basically getting 1, 2, 3 flex guys compared to Puka and Rashad White. So it does make your team better, I think. But so tomorrow night, we have a really fun Thursday night football game, guys. I will be going live at 6:30 p.m. Central Time. If you guys want to join me, again, 6:30 p.m. Central Time, we'll go live and talk for about a half an hour or so and get you guys updated on all the news and information you need. Any start-sit questions you guys have, we'll also have just a ton of practice reports. So if you guys want to hang out tomorrow night, please do. Enjoy the rest of your evening. And if you guys ever have any questions, don't be shy. You can comment on the video here. Hit me up on X, TikTok, wherever you need. And thank you for everything. Thanks for hanging out, guys. We'll see you tomorrow evening. Peace. Got me feeling icy.